Never really family. Carol said it around a mouthful of stuffing, not even looking up, tossing it across the table to my husband like a serving dish. Not to me. About me. Like I wasn't 3 feet away holding a fork. Nobody said anything. My father-in-law kept chewing. The dog under the table let out a long sigh, like even he'd heard it and didn't know what to do with it either. I didn't say anything. I picked up my fork and finished my pie. Carol went back to talking about the parade route for New Year's like she hadn't just said it. She had no idea that 3 Christmases from now, the cabin she guarded like her own name was on it would be sitting in probate. And the only clean paper trail on that property would have my name at the top of it. 3 years earlier. The cabin sat on Otter Lake, 20 minutes outside Eagle River, a squat little A-frame with a green tin roof Hank had put on himself in 1994 and never let anyone forget it. Danny grew up going up there every summer. I married into it the way you marry into anything that's already been running for 40 years without you. You learn the rules after you've already broken a couple. Rule 1, Carol kept the gate code. Not Hank. Carol. She changed it every spring for security, and every spring it took her 2 weeks to remember to send it to us, so the first 2 weekends of the season we'd sit in the driveway texting her from a spot with 1 bar of signal, waiting. Rule 2, nothing got fixed without a family vote, and Carol ran the vote. The dock had been listing since I'd known Danny. The propane tank alarm chirped low battery for an entire August. Every time Danny brought it up at dinner, Carol had the same answer, delivered the same way like a recording. We'll get to it. It's not a priority right now. What was a priority, apparently, was the new flagpole. And the Voss family, S1961, sign Carol had custom rooted at a shop in Rhinelander, even though Hank's name was the one on the deed and hers wasn't on it at all. The notice came on a Tuesday in March. Danny found it in the stack of cabin mail Carol forwarded twice a year, an orange-bordered envelope from Oneida County, 3 years of unpaid property tax, penalties compounding, a redemption deadline printed in bold at the bottom. He called Carol first. She said she'd handle it. She did not handle it. Hank's heart thing had started that winter, nothing dramatic, just a stent, a list of new pill bottles on the kitchen counter, a cardiologist appointment every 6 weeks that Carol scheduled around her hair appointments. He got tired faster. He stopped arguing about the flagpole money. He started saying things like, "You kids will figure it out after I'm gone," in a tone that made the room go quiet. I didn't say anything at dinner that night either. I just went home, pulled up the Oneida County Treasurer's website, and paid the full delinquent balance out of an account with only my name on it. Then I set up auto-pay for every year after and saved the confirmation email in a folder labeled, plainly, Cabin. I didn't tell Danny, I didn't tell Hank, I definitely didn't tell Carol. Some people would call that sneaking around. I called it not asking permission for something no one had ever asked me to do in the first place, and not giving Carol one more thing to hold over a family that was already down to holding its breath. That was the year the exclusions started stacking, small enough that any one of them sounded petty to say out loud. The gate code changed in April like always, and this time it never made it to me at all, just to Danny in a text where my name wasn't on the thread. When I asked him about it, he looked confused, like it hadn't occurred to him I wasn't on it. "I'll add you," he said. He never did. Then there was the family group text cabin crew, Carol had named it, complete with a little pine tree emoji. Sometime in June, I noticed I hadn't gotten a message in 3 weeks. I asked Danny's sister, Bate, if the thread was quiet. "Oh, it's not quiet," she said. "Wait, you're not in it." Carol had cleaned up the group that spring. Everyone else got re-added. I didn't. I didn't bring it up. I just noted it, the way you note a water stain on a ceiling, not urgent, but you remember exactly where it started. July 4th, Carol had the whole family up for the long weekend. There's a photo from that trip that ended up printed and framed on the cabin's living room wall, 11 people on the dock. the sunset doing that orange thing it does over Otter Lake in summer. I'm not in it. I'd taken the picture. Nobody had thought to hand the camera to someone else and pull me into the shot, and somehow, out of 40 photos taken that weekend, that was the one that got framed. I kept paying the taxes, I kept the folder. I kept my mouth shut, and I got good at it, good enough that by the next spring, when Carol mentioned in passing that the county had sent some notice about back payments, must be a clerical thing, I called and it's resolved. I just nodded and passed the mashed potatoes. Hank died in October on a Tuesday in his sleep, the kind of death people call peaceful because it's kinder than saying anything else. The funeral was small. Rhinelander doesn't do big funerals for men who spent 40 years fixing their own roof and telling the same 3 jokes at every holiday. Carol cried the loud kind of crying that fills up a room. I stood in the back and thought about the flagpole. The estate went to a local attorney named Priscilla Ostrander, out of a 2-room office above the hardware store in Eagle River, the same firm that had handled Hank's will since 1988. Probate on a property this size means a title search, standard, routine, the kind of paperwork nobody reads closely because nobody expects it to say anything interesting. It said something interesting. 3 years of Oneida County tax payments, current and clean, on an account that didn't belong to Hank, didn't belong to the estate, and didn't belong to any of his 3 children. 1 account, 1 name on it, mine. Ostrander's office called Danny first, because Danny was listed as next of kin on the file. The woman on the phone, a paralegal named Sherry, wasn't trying to stir anything up. She just needed to know who M. Voss was on the county roll, because whoever it was had a legal claim on the property that had to be settled before probate could close. Danny didn't know what to tell her, so he asked me. "It's mine," I told him plain, the way I'd have told him 3 years earlier if he'd asked. He didn't say much. He just looked at me for a second, then let out one short laugh, more surprised than anything else. The family meeting happened 2 weeks later in Ostrander's office because Carol insisted on getting to the bottom of this in person. Bate drove in. Mark flew back from Denver. Carol took the head of the little conference table, same as always, like she still ran the vote. Ostrander didn't waste time. She set the title search on the table, then the tax record, then the folder of confirmation emails I'd forwarded her the week before, 3 years, dated, clean. "The estate can't transfer clear title," she said, "until Mrs. Voss's claim against the property is settled, delinquent redemption plus statutory interest." She read the figure out loud. It wasn't small. Carol went quiet. She looked at Danny. He didn't look away. "You paid this," she said to me, like she was still deciding whether to believe it. 3 years ago," I said, "in March, before the redemption deadline hit." Nobody asked why I'd never mentioned it. I think everyone in that room already knew. Ostrander laid out the options plain. The estate could reimburse the lien out of Hank's account, or the deed could get red-idled to reflect my claim outright. Carol wanted to argue. There isn't much room to argue with a county record. They reimbursed it. The cabin passed to the 3 kids equally, exactly the way Hank's will had always said it would. I never asked for a piece of a deed that was never going to carry my name. I didn't want the cabin. I wanted 3 years of being told I didn't matter to stop being true. Carol still comes up to the cabin. She still calls the flagpole vote. But the gate code goes out to everyone on the list the day it changes now. No exceptions. Danny made sure of that himself. And every March, the tax bill gets split 3 ways and paid on time, at the same kitchen table where a woman once told me I'd never really be family, right in front of me, like I couldn't hear. I still keep the folder. I don't know why. Maybe just to remember what it feels like to hold something heavy that nobody else even knows is there. Would you have said something that Thanksgiving, the second it happened? Or would you have gone quiet, the way I did, and let the truth do the talking 3 years later? If stories like this one are your kind of thing, don't forget to subscribe. This is Mr. Stark, and we'll see you in the next one.